Hey everyone. So previously I have done my top 10 horror remakes I think are better than the originals. Now due to my opinions changing over time, I no longer have enough to do a full top 10. So instead I'm expanding that and I'm just doing top 10 remakes of any genre that I think are better than the originals. Now, as always, I'm not including movies like John Carpenter's The Thing, Pet Sematary 2019, and It Chapters 1 and 2, because they're not remakes, they are separate adaptations of the same source materials. They may have taken inspiration from the original movies, but they are ultimately not direct remakes. The movies will be ranked by how much they improve on the original, not how good or bad they are on their own. Although that will be a factor. I will also be looking at how closely each film follows the original. Carbon copy, completely different, or somewhere in between. And needless to say, there will be spoilers, so consider this your warning. Starting off, number 10 is Night of the Living Dead, 1990. Don't get me wrong, the original is a classic for a reason, but it has some issues. It tends to drag during the second act, the ending has always rubbed me the wrong way, and Barbara is annoyingly useless for most of the film. The remake improves on all three of those things. Pacing is better, the ending isn't a total downer.
Whoa.
Drag that out of here. I'm going in there. Watch your back. There may be more of them.
All right. Came back. You came back.
Another one for the fire.
And not only is Barbara a total badass, but she's also portrayed realistically. Like, she's a badass, but also she sometimes gets cocky and overconfident. It's mostly just the original again, with a few changes, but I think it's the more well-rounded film overall. My score for both is 4 out of 5, but the remake score is just, like, slightly higher. Number 9 is Friday the 13th, 2009. The original Friday the 13th is a solid horror movie, but it's definitely one of the weaker starts to a horror franchise. It's an admitted clone of Halloween, and most of the characters have little to no depth. It also has some great kills, better acting than most slasher flicks, and a solid villain. Unlike most horror remakes, and most remakes in general, this one isn't a direct remake of the original film. Instead, it borrows elements from the first 3 or 4 movies and mixes them together with a little bit of new stuff.
Winnie, help! Winnie, please! Help! Winnie! Winnie!
This is my third favorite version of Jason after the ones from Part 4 and Part 6. I love that he's more of a lean survivalist killer who can sometimes outsmart his victims. The remake is also just a step up in terms of technical aspects, like it's better shot, the editing is better. I mean, it's still not great, but I think it's an improvement. Score for the original is 3 out of 5. Score for the remake is 3.5 out of 5. Number 8 is The Hills Have Eyes, 2006. The original Hills Have Eyes is one of Wes Craven's more underrated films. There wasn't a lot of style to it, and that's something I've talked about in the past. Wes Craven, his movies had style, but he himself never really had his own distinct style. When his movies had style, it wasn't the same. Like, Scream has its own style, And A Nightmare on Elm Street has a different style. The Hills Have Eyes doesn't really have a lot of style at all. It has some, but you could tell this was early in his career. Needless to say, there was room for improvement, and the remake took full advantage of that. It's the same basic plot, the same basic setup, but it adds enough new stuff to not be a rehash. The biggest improvement here is the pacing. The original is pretty good, but the pacing is pretty slow. The remake is actually longer, but because of the faster pacing, they feel like they're about the same length. Probably the biggest asset and the biggest addition that I love is the whole town that the mutants have.
Where's my daughter? Where is she? Answer me!
I don't know where she is. I never leave this place. Your people asked our families to leave their town, and you destroyed our homes. We went into the mines. You set off your bombs and turned everything to ashes. You made us what we've become. Boom, boom, boom.
Where's my baby? What's so funny?
It's breakfast time.
Compared to the original, at least, that whole sequence is completely original. So it gets bonus points for that. Score for the original is 3 out of 5. Score for the remake is 3.5 out of 5. Number 7 is Scarface from 1983. The original Scarface from 1932 is a classic noir flick, but Brian De Palma's version is a small step up. Sure, it's almost 3 hours long, but the pacing is good enough that it only feels like about 2.5 hours. Whether or not you still think that's too long is completely up to you. Your mileage may vary. This movie goes more in depth exploring its main character, and in hindsight, Al Pacino probably wasn't the best choice to play a Cuban. However, unfortunately, that kind of thing was fairly common at the time, and to his credit, his accent is at least decent. Now, I'm no expert, so take that with a grain of salt, but still. Questionable casting aside, Al Pacino is fucking great. This is before he started hamming it up in every movie. There are certainly moments where he hams it up, but there are also moments where he's more subdued and more nuanced, and it's wonderful to watch.
You're gonna have her. I go away, I'm gonna disappear, Tony. You'll never see me again, Tony. Please, I don't want to die. I never did nothing to nobody.
No, you never did nothing to nobody.
That's right.
You had somebody else do it for you.
Oh, Tony, come on, I'm begging you.
Get up! Jesus! Get up!
No! God.
Louis.
No, don't kill me, please.
I ain't gonna kill you.
Oh, Christ, thank you.
Get up.
Thank you.
Manolo, shoot that piece of chip.
No. No!
Every dog has his day.
The climax is obviously what this movie is most famous for. You know, say hello to my little friend and all that. But the lead up to get there is pretty great too. My score for the original is 3.5 out of 5. My score for the remake is 4 out of 5. Number 6 is The Mummy from 1959. The original Mummy from 1932 is great, but at the end of the day, it felt too much like Dracula with a different coat of paint. The Hammer version shares some similarities with Dracula, but ultimately it's more of its own thing, and it also diverges from the original Mummy and its sequels. The acting is better, the technical aspects are better. That's what 27 years of technological improvements will get you. Writing is not the best, but it's definitely a step up. My score for the original is 3.5 out of 5. My score for the remake is 4 out of 5. Number 5 is Tombstone from 1993, which, if you didn't know, is a remake of My Darling Clementine from 1946. And technically, they are both based on real events.
Sister boy should have stuck around.
What do you want, Ringo?
I want your blood. And I want your souls. And I want them both right now.
I don't want any more trouble.
Well, you got trouble! And it starts with you.
I'm not gonna fight you, Ringo. There's no money in it. Sober up. Come on, boys.
Wretched slugs. Don't any of you have the guts to play for blood?
I'm your huckleberry. That's just my game.
Mainly those surrounding the shootout at the OK Corral, which, yes, for those of you who didn't know, was a real thing. However, because this is my show and I can do what I want, I'm saying that doesn't count as an adaptation, because it's not an existing piece of media, it's something that actually happened. So it counts for this list. I saw My Darling Clementine in college somewhere between 2017 and 2018. It was either first or second year of college. It's a great movie, and it's even more interesting to watch because it was made over a decade before the big Western boom of the 60s. For those of you who complain that there are too many superhero movies nowadays, just take an hour and just do some research into film history. Every era of filmmaking has like 2 or 3 types of movies that everybody and their mother was making. In the 60s, it was horror movies inspired by Psycho and Westerns. In the 80s, it was Lethal Weapon-esque action movies and slasher movies. In the late 90s and early 2000s, it was self-aware Scream ripoffs aimed at teenagers. Nowadays, it's superhero movies. So, chill. Anyway, sorry, that was a tangent. From my understanding, Tombstone is actually more historically accurate than My Darling Clementine. It still changes some things, obviously, but it changes less. It also expands on the original. My Darling Clementine had the gunfight at the OK Corral serving as the climax, but in Tombstone, that's around the halfway mark. The second half of the movie shows us the aftermath, the fallout, including Wyatt Earp's war against the Cowboys. I find this hilarious. For all the things this movie changed, all the history of the movie gets wrong, the bit where they're in a shootout and Wyatt just wanders out into the middle of the battlefield with no cover and doesn't take a single hit, that actually happened. I'm not kidding, look it up. It's pretty hilarious. Like, after the battle, guys were looking him over and he was looking himself over, and he's like, there are holes in his coat where bullets had almost hit him, but he hadn't been hit at all. Also, Kurt Russell in this movie has the greatest mustache of all time. Fight me. My score for the original is 4 out of 5. Score for the remake is 4.5 out of 5. Number 4 is The Blob from 1988. The original Blob from 58 is a cult classic and I love it, but the remake improves on it in almost every way. The acting, directing, writing, cinematography, editing, practical effects are all better. The plot has enough new twists and turns to satisfy fans of the original who don't want a carbon copy. For example, this movie's version of Steve McQueen's character is killed off in the first act. In the original, he was the protagonist. He was the main character. Here, he's dead in 30 minutes or less.
Sheriff's Department.
Get me the sheriff. It's an emergency.
Paul?
Geller speaking.
Sheriff, this is Paul Taylor.
Oh, what's wrong?
I'm at the Orbanville Hospital. An old man's just been killed down here.
You said killed?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you sit tight, I'll be right down. Now, who else is involved?
I'm with Meg Penny. And Brian Flagg was here earlier.
Flagg? Where is he now?
The scares are also more effective. And there's one moment of just pure badassery I want to point out. At one point, a part of the Blob is about to slam down on a soldier, and real quick, he pulls the pins on 2 grenades right before it hits him. And then a few seconds later, you see 2 flashes under the Blob. Great stuff. My score for the original is 3.5 out of 5. My score for the remake is 4.5 out of 5. Number 3 is Suspiria from 2018. My opinion of the original Suspiria has gone up since I last discussed these two. I actually think the original is great, but I still think the remake is a step up. The original, it has a striking color palette, the filmmaking is very stylized, and the acting is all pretty good, but the plot is thin, and most of the kills are kind of cheesy. It's still great, but it's not perfect. The remake is a different movie entirely, literally. It takes the same characters and the same basic setup, and it tells a completely different story. The cinematography is outstanding. Maybe not better than the original, but on par with it at least. This movie's also an hour longer than the original, yet everything feels necessary. There's really not much you could cut out without hurting the film in some way. Every shot is perfectly framed and every scene serves a purpose. And the color palette is the exact opposite of the originals. It's washed out and full of gray. This might be the only movie I've ever seen where a bland color palette actually works to its benefit. The lack of color perfectly complements the setting, both location and time period. The acting is solid across the board. Tilda Swinton is outstanding, and Dakota Johnson, let's just say I forgive her for 50 Shades of Shit, and I will never be able to look at her the same way again. And the dancing in the remake is actually good. Like, in the original, the dancing is passable, but you could tell it wasn't a high priority. In the remake, you can tell all of the actresses went through training to learn how to dance. My score for the original is 4 out of 5. My score for the remake is 5 out of 5. Number 2 is Ocean's 11 from 2001. The original Ocean's 11 is good. It is a good movie with a fantastic cast. The problem is that nothing else in the film is as good as the talent of that cast. So ultimately, the cast ends up having to carry a lot of it. The remake actually has other aspects of it that are on par with its cast. The characters are all well developed and well acted, and they're all fleshed out.
Escalante? Should I call you Mr. Catton? You are Frank Catton, formerly of the Tropicana, the Desert Inn, and the New York State Penitentiary System. Are you not? Take it from your silence that you're not going to refute that. Mr. Benedict, I'm afraid you've been employing an ex-convict. And as you know, the NGC...
Goddamn cracker.
Excuse me?
You heard what I said. Black man can't earn a decent wage in this state.
That is absolutely
cowboy like you gonna try to throw me out on the street.
No, I'm trying to do my job, sir.
Do your job. What you want from me, man? Want me to get on the table and dance? You like me to shine your shoes? Want me to smile at you? But you definitely won't let me deal the cars. You might as well call it White Jack. Bingo.
The writing is solid. There's one minor plot hole, but honestly, I don't even care. It doesn't take away from the experience all that much. The heist is definitely a step up from the original. The pacing is better. It's just better.
Better. Better? Just better.
My score for the original is 3 out of 5. My score for the remake is 4.5 out of 5. Finally, my number 1 is The Crazies from 2010. The original is actually the second Romero movie on this list, and it's one of his more obscure flicks as well. The original, it's well shot, and it had plenty of interesting ideas, but it's also kind of a mess. The remake is a big improvement, and here's why. Both of these movies center around a viral outbreak in a small American town. The original jumps back and forth between two storylines: the townsfolk trying to survive and figure out what the fuck's going on, and the military trying to contain the virus while their scientists try to find a cure. Unfortunately, both storylines were underdeveloped and never really lived up to their full potential. The remake streamlines the plot by only focusing on the townsfolk, and the result is a scarier movie with more tension, a more focused story, and better defined and developed characters.
Stay there.
Boys, get in the dugout.
Get up! Bring it in! Get him off the field! Get him in the dugout, Principal.
Rory! Whoa. Hey, Rory, we got a ball game going on here. We're playing ball, you come out with a gun? What the hell are you doing? Oh, Rory. Now you're drunk. That's all. All right, let's just lay the gun down. Rory, lay the gun down. Lay it down. No, Rory, come on. Hey, whoa, Rory. Now you lay that gun down. Rory? Oh, my God.
The original works best as a time capsule to low-budget horror of the early 70s, pre-Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The remake is so good that I'm baffled they never made a sequel. My score for the original is 2.5 out of 5. My score for the remake is 4.5 out of 5. Hey everyone, which of these do you agree with? Which of these do you disagree with? Which remakes do you think are better than the originals that I didn't include? Let me know all that down in the comments. Like and subscribe and all that. If you don't like the video, tell me why, try to be constructive, and then subscribe anyway. You'll get notified when there's a new video. Watch that and tell me why that one sucks. Or maybe where I've improved, whatever the case may be. That's all for now. Stay safe in these crazy times.